Hey guys, Aradhya Gupta here from Internal Combustion. So today I'll be talking to Ishaan Bharadwaj. He's a very good friend of mine, also known as the Race Monkey. You must have heard of him. He's a fantastic automotive journalist that I'll be talking to. And as luck would have it, it happens to be one of the media drives today for the new upcoming electric vehicle by MG Motors. It's called the Comet. So he was just actually a part of that media drive being a journalist, and he has the Comet right now with himself. So we'll be going and meeting him. And apart from the MG Comet, we would be talking a lot about cars in general, and what makes him emotional about cars, and which cars is he emotional about, his history with some of those cars, and so on and so forth. And also we'll be talking about his experience as an automotive journalist with a little more than 100 cars, I would say. And he would also be talking to us about which one of those cars he feels deserve that kind of admiration, and which of those cars would also would probably be remembered as some of the cult cars. So yeah, let's head on to that and stay tuned. Hey guys, Aradhya Gupta here from Internal Combustion, and today we are here in Sundar Nursery, and the weather is super amazing. Here with a buddy of mine who's one of the greatest automobile journalists I've ever come across, and so we are here to talk to him about a few things in general, just to capture the essence of cars, as I mentioned in my earlier video. If you do not know what we are talking about in my series of videos, please refer to the first video that I had uploaded on my channel, and you'll get to know. So starting from why I'm here today is to have a look at this very new vehicle which is coming out by MG Motors. It's called the MG Comet. It's an electric vehicle. So let's ask you, what do you think of this vehicle?
So I came in with a very neutral mindset about how the MG Comet would be, because I've seen quite a lot of people talk trash about it. But for starters, and how this car has been packaged, it is actually quite brilliant. Like, MG is focusing towards local mobility for people who want to go from point A to point B within the city. And for that essence, this makes absolute sense. It's quite small, it's shorter in length, shorter in width as well, and for 4 people to potter around in the city, this makes quite a lot of sense.
I think it's quite cute, man. I mean, practically wherever an auto can go, this car can go, I think.
That's actually saying
and it's got a decent range also, about 250 odd kilometers, if I'm not
230
wrong.
kilometers.
230 kilometers.
That's what the company claims.
And if somebody drives like you, I think it would not end up giving more than about 160 kilometers of range.
That's actually interesting, because
fun fact, sorry to cut you, fun fact about this car, it's a rear wheel drive. So for all the budding car enthusiasts who want to hoon around a little bit on the streets of Delhi, don't say I told this to you, but yes, it's actually a pretty fun car. I drove it around here a little bit. It's damn good fun.
But generally speaking, because of the lower center of gravity and the rear wheel drive setup, although this car is quite a tall boy concept, in Japan it's called the Kei cars, and they are built and designed in a way that they are smaller and easy to drive through the city traffic. And you've seen the likes of the first generation Wagonars and the Zen Estilos. That is where the design concept came in from, and this concept is back in India, and it's going to take a lot of time for people to digest this sort of design element.
It will.
But the practical side of it also has quite an interesting fact that this car is pretty fun to drive. Now, this has a lower center of gravity, it's got smaller wheels, the battery pack is on the bottom, it has its motor at the back. So essentially this is a rear wheel driven go-kart. Although it has a tall boy roof, and the roof is genuinely quite high, even still it does not have that head heaviness, because most of the weight is focused towards the bottom,
which is, I think, a pretty good thing, considering the current cars in this category, they are kind of wobbly because of the weight distribution, and this has all the weight on the bottom. So I think this does a pretty good job.
Pretty interesting car to drive, to be honest.
So let's start with you. and let's get to know about, what's probably the most emotional experience you've had with a car, and which car was it, and why was it very emotional to you?
So the car that I had an emotional connect with was the Gen 2 Honda Accord that my father used to have. That was one of the first poster cars that we ended up owning within the family, and it was quite a wonderful thing. A 2.4 liter petrol engine with a manual gearbox, a 5-speed
Oh
manual
wow.
gearbox, and for that time it was quite an enthusiast delight. A lot of people used to modify it, turn it into something out of the Fast and the Furious movies because it had all the design elements of a proper GADM car. And that is what I remember of, and that was one of the most powerful cars that was there in my family as well. My father sold it off uh, back in 2008, and fortunately after 8 years, that was back in 2016, I tried finding the current owner of the car again through multiple online forums. We finally found him, tracing the registration number, and I bought that car back from its fourth owner. And I had it till the life cycle of that car lasted, which was back in 2018. I had that car for good 2 years until that thing was deregistered and went off to scrap. But the last 2 years of that car was pretty special for me because I was living my memories of the childhood and really made sure that I enjoyed this naturally aspirated engine with the manual gearbox, which in today's time is an absolute,
It's non-existent,
it's
practically.
non-existent.
It's non-existent.
You have to buy cars like the Porsche 911 to get that, which is quite expensive. You'll have to sell your house.
Yeah. But so how would you compare? उठा ले, कोई नहीं, काट लेंगे बीच में से.
हाँ जी, हाँ हाँ शूट कर रहा हूँ, ये बात करते हैं. बताओ क्या हो वैसे मुझे. ठीक, ओके बाय.
So, but how would you compare your dad's Honda Accord 2.4 with the current Honda Accord on an emotional and a uniqueness aspect?
So there's a lot of difference as we grow older through this entire transition of cars becoming more sustainable, more electrified, as to say, because there are so many legislations, so many emission norms that are coming in through government policies, etc., etc. We're solely losing out the true essence of how cars used to be. Now that Accord that we had, which was a 2003 Honda Accord with that slim light,
long
at the
tail
back,
lights,
long
yeah,
tail
yeah,
lights at
yeah,
the
yeah,
back. It was naturally aspirated. People in those times did not think much about fuel economy figures. They were more interested in the driving dynamics, the character of the car, the way it was built. It had natural leather interiors. As to what we have today, we have faux leather, Rexine, even in cars like the Mercedes S-Class. Things were very basic. Things were very focused towards the touch and feel, the very sensory things that are related to the cars and the driving experience as per se. These days, I mean, the last Honda Accord that we had in India, that was a hybrid. It was pretty heavy, and it costed a bomb, 55 lakh rupees for a Honda Accord.
And if I'm not wrong, the one you're talking about, because now that you're mentioning about it, I think, yes, even I had a grey colored Honda Accord, the same one as yours. That costed what, about 17 odd lakhs?
16, 17 lakhs.
16, 70 lakhs back in those days. A 2.4 liter naturally aspirated petrol engine. It was quite a gun in its times.
And what you get these days for 16 lakh is a Hyundai i20.
Yeah. So it's crazy how the car culture and, in general, cars are, I shouldn't say changing, but I should say evolving, looking at the current times. But there's a huge difference. I still remember sneaking out of my house with my dad's Accord when I was, back then when I was in school. And not a single signal I used to leave without doing a burnout. Just imagine a 2.4 liter petrol engine, naturally aspirated, manual gear shift. Why wouldn't you want to do that? It was a cult in its own times.
And it had a massive boot. The rear seats were very comfortable. Honda Accord and the Toyota Camry were known for its rear seat experience.
Oh yeah, those
The-
two were probably the best chauffeur-driven cars ever.
And the best part is engineers of yesteryears were more focused towards driving dynamics, ergonomics. Ergonomics was a very, very essential concept back in the days, where how the driver feels, what sort of button is placed where. That used to mean a lot for
Yeah.
a driver's experience. Nowadays, because everything is on the touchscreen, everything is there on voice command, that essence of the engineering factor of how these things were conceptualized has diminished.
So let's go to the next question I have for you. It's an interesting one, considering you're an automotive journalist and you've driven gazillions of cars. So as a journalist who has driven a variety of cars, as I mentioned, do you think that each car has its own personality or character? If so, can you describe some examples of cars that you've driven?
That's true, Aradhe. I feel, and this sort of feeling has come after driving almost, hundreds of cars that I've had in the Race Monkey garage, is what I call. Every car has its own character. Every car is built with a purpose. Every car is designed with a very different mindset from the designer's end, from the engineer's end. So they have a very different character. Let's, for example, say there is a Lexus. I have the ES300H, which is a hybrid luxury limousine, which is based on the Toyota Camry. Now, the way it has been perceived is very different to what you see in the German cars. It's more sedate. It has a very laid-back attitude towards doing things. It's like one of those ramen chefs that you find in Japan who want to make a certain set of ramens, and he'll work till 6 o'clock in the evening, and then he'll just go back home, have some dinner, have a sip of sake, and go off to sleep. He does not want to rush into things and do everything in a day. And I actually like that quite a lot. It has a very, very relaxed outlook as a car. And on the other side,
not too much happening in terms
not
of
too much
features
happening. And see, after the age of 30, and fortunately and unfortunately, I have crossed that age. You want that sort of relaxed feeling when you're sitting inside the car. I've driven some very nice German performance cars. Not saying that they're bad, but the feeling of tranquility, the experience that you get in a car which is quiet, which is built with very purposeful ergonomics, the Lexus actually makes quite a lot of sense, and that character on the whole really defines the person I am, because now I've become a little laid back. I'm not the monkey that I used to be. And at the same time, there are cars like the smaller cars. Let's, for example, there is the Volkswagen Polo. Although it looks very simple, it has very basic design elements. On the inside, there is not much going on. It's not a busy interior with massive screens and angels coming out of the glove box to serve you orange juice. It still has that very sharp character. It's like that samurai that's being graduated from Montessori class. It's small, but it's going to be, it's going to cut you the fruits at the right time.
Like the Katan.
Like it has a katana in its hand, and it's just going skew. But it doesn't look like it's going to be that aggressive. So, yeah, I mean, every car in this industry right now has a very different character, has a very different outlook towards how it was designed and why it was perceived in the first place.
And I think, in my opinion, I mean, you're talking about the Lexus. I think apart from Lexus, Volvo also seems to have done a brilliant job on that front by not giving too many toys inside the car to play around with. But at the same time, when you sit in a Volvo, when you drive a Volvo, and when you actually know where the Volvo comes from, what kind of testing and thought processes have gone behind that, what kind of innovations today that almost all the general cars are using is invented by Volvo. That is, you know, that's what gives you that, that's what energizes you about owning a Volvo. And secondly, when you're talking about relaxed driving, so I think even on a lighter note, the definition of relaxed driving has really changed over time. Earlier, relaxed driving and relaxed journey used to be more about, you know, driving a car which is nice to drive and you feel connected with the car because you feel fulfilled when you drive. But these days I'm seeing it's a sad state of affairs. But relaxed drive probably means autonomous driving. कि यार गाड़ी तो खुद ही चलनी चाहिए.
The focus is more towards Sport Plus modes, autonomous driving, lane keeping assist. India is not built for ADAS, to be honest. A lot of brands, a lot of these so-called influencers, they sort of focus more towards, oh, this car does not have ADAS, oh, it's pointless. Just look at how that car was designed. Like, for example, there is this Volkswagen Virtus, which has been launched a couple of years ago. And till date, it does not have the ADAS. It does not get that lane keeping assist, although the competition does. Now, that small feature, which is pointless in the Indian context, becomes such an important factor for people to judge how beautiful that car is. The way it drives is absolutely magnificent. As a mechanical engineer, when I drive that car at 4 o'clock in the morning to chase the sunrise, I feel connected to it. I don't need all of that bells and whistles inside it that sort of allure my senses temporarily, but that long-term pleasure of driving a good car, it's there. The other cars in its competition, of course, they might have all the bells and whistles. It might have the biggest sunroof where you can put all your kids out
Starry roof
and all that stuff that people keep on doing with the sunroofs, and all these big screens. But driving pleasure is what is pretty much the definition of
driving
comfort.
pleasure as in its own self, the way this phrase driving pleasure, I think it's understood very differently now. But I mean, lastly, I'd like to mention that being a car enthusiast myself, I used to own a Ford Endeavour as my daily driver, Ford Endeavour 3.2. It's a brilliant car, automatic gearbox, a 3.2 litre diesel engine, quite a guzzler, but still manageable. And it had its own features and, so on and so forth. So definitely, naturally, a person who owns a Ford Endeavour, what do you think would be his next car? They would aspire for probably a Land Rover Defender or Land Cruiser, which honestly I was thinking of going in for the Land Rover Defender or probably the Land Cruiser or so on and so forth. But guess what I actually ended up buying? It's standing right there. I don't know, you can probably see it in the camera or no, but it's a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon.
But even this MG Comet, to be honest, in terms of its driving character and how it feels, I mean, just by the looks of it, just by the design of it, it might not look very enthusiastic, it might not look very crispy as a car, but it's quite a lot of fun, and that sort of defines what driving pleasure is to start off with. I mean, someone who knows how a rear wheel drive car functions and behaves with a lower center of gravity, I think for someone who drives this, it's going to be quite a pleasurable experience, and they would really enjoy being behind the wheel of this car.
Absolutely. So I guess it's been a good. So yeah, I think that sums up my conversation with Ishaan today, and in future, God willing, we'll have more such conversations with Ishaan and many people in the whole automotive fraternity. So yeah, this is Aradhya Gupta signing out, Internal Combustion. Thanks a lot, buddy. Take care. See you in the next one.
Wear your seatbelts.